From rejection to redemption, Michael Jordan's journey is more than just a tale of basketball greatness. It's a story of relentless perseverance, overcoming unimaginable loss, and rising above every challenge life threw his way. This is the story of how a boy who was once told he wasn't good enough became the greatest player the world has ever seen, and how his legacy continues to inspire millions to rise after every fall. Michael Jordan's rise to basketball greatness is one of the most iconic stories in sports history. He's often referred to as the greatest player to ever play the game, a name that is synonymous with success, skill, and a level of dominance no one had seen before. His 6 NBA championships, 5 MVP awards, and countless accolades made him a global icon, someone whose influence went far beyond the basketball court. His name became a symbol of greatness, not just in sports, but in culture itself. But what many don't know is that before Michael Jordan became the living legend, he was just another kid facing rejection. In his early years, he was considered too small, not good enough, and was even cut from his high school varsity basketball team. These early failures weren't just bumps in the road, they were moments that could have ended his dream. But instead of giving up, Michael Jordan used those rejections as fuel. His failure, instead of defining him, became the very thing that pushed him to greatness. It was through these painful moments that his drive and determination were forged. However, behind every legend, there is often a hidden struggle. The truth behind Michael's rise wasn't just about overcoming obstacles on the court. It was about carrying a deep personal pain that no trophy could ever fix. And this painful truth would follow him throughout his journey to the top. Michael Jordan grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina, in a working-class family that valued hard work and discipline. His father, James R. Jordan, Sr., was a mechanic and factory supervisor who worked long hours to provide for his family. Despite the challenges of their modest life, his father was a constant source of support and guidance. His mother, Dolores, worked at a local bank and was known for her quiet resilience. She was determined to instill a sense of responsibility and discipline in her children. Both parents played a key role in shaping Michael's character, teaching him the importance of respect, effort, and perseverance. One of the most influential aspects of Michael's early life was his relationship with his older brother, Larry. Larry was stronger, quicker, and more skilled at basketball than Michael, and their constant competition in the backyard became a defining part of Michael's childhood. Michael admired Larry, but at the same time, he wanted to prove himself better. Larry's success in every backyard game made Michael question whether greatness was something he could ever achieve. Michael later admitted that he always felt like Larry was better than him, which fueled both his admiration and envy. However, the moment that would truly define Michael's path to greatness came when he was 15 years old. He tried out for the varsity basketball team at Emsley A. Laney High School, full of hope and ambition, only to find his name missing from the list of selected players. That rejection hit him hard. His dream of playing on the varsity team seemed impossible. He walked home that day, feeling crushed, with the weight of disappointment heavy in his chest. That night, Michael went to his room, closed the door, and cried. It was a moment of deep humiliation and self-doubt, but it was also a moment that would ignite the fire within him. His father, sensing his pain, came to his side and reminded him that every great person faces rejection at some point in their life. His father's words helped Michael realize that this failure wasn't the end. It was simply the beginning of something bigger. Little did he know that rejection would be the spark that ignited the relentless pursuit of greatness that no one would be able to stop. The bond between Michael Jordan and his father, James R. Jordan Sr., was unlike any other. From a young age, Michael looked up to his father, not just as a provider, but as his source of strength and guidance. James was a hard-working man, dedicated to his family, and committed to teaching his children the value of discipline and perseverance. He worked long hours as a mechanic and supervisor, but no matter how exhausted he was, he always made time for his children. After long days at work, James would take Michael outside, often to the backyard, where they would play sports or talk about life. In those quiet evenings, James wasn't just teaching Michael how to hold a bat or perfect a shot, he was teaching him how to be a man. James was tough on Michael, pushing him to be better, to work harder, and to never settle for mediocrity. He believed in Michael's potential, even when others didn't, and he made sure his son understood that success didn't come easy. Whether it was extra chores around the house or higher expectations in basketball, James pushed Michael beyond what he thought was possible. Yet, despite the tough love, James was always there to support his son. When Michael failed or faced setbacks, it was his father who lifted him up and reminded him that failure was just a part of the journey. The love and unwavering belief James had in Michael became the foundation upon which all of Michael's future success was built. But as much as Michael admired his father's strength, it was James's emotional support that became crucial to his development. Michael was emotionally dependent on his father's voice, always seeking his approval and reassurance. Whether it was before a big game or after a tough loss, Michael would call his father, seeking comfort and guidance. James's words were a source of calm in the chaos of Michael's competitive world. He trusted his father's wisdom, and in many ways, it was his father's steady presence that kept him grounded through all the ups and downs of his career. However, as much as Michael relied on his father's guidance, he would soon face a heart-wrenching blow that no amount of training or discipline could prepare him for. Despite all the lessons of strength and belief, Michael's journey would take a devastating turn, one that would shake the very foundation of his spirit. Michael Jordan's time at the University of North Carolina, UNC, marked a crucial chapter in his journey to greatness. When he arrived at UNC in 1981, he was a freshman full of promise. But he quickly learned that the path to success wasn't going to be easy. Under Coach Dean Smith, Michael faced a new set of challenges, both on and off the court. Coach Smith was known for his strict discipline and high expectations, and he demanded that his players adhere to a structured system that emphasized teamwork and unselfish play. For Michael, a player who had thrived on raw talent and individual success, adjusting to this new style of play was difficult. He was used to being the star, the go-to player, but at UNC, he had to fit into a team-oriented system. This was a tough pill to swallow for someone who had always been the best player on the court. But Michael wasn't one to back down from a challenge. Over time, he began to adapt, learning the importance of playing within the system, trusting his teammates, and working toward a common goal. The competition at UNC was fierce, and every practice pushed Michael to improve. While his skills were undeniable, Michael also learned the importance of discipline, focus, and patience. The transition wasn't easy, and there were moments of frustration, but it was during these early years at UNC that Michael truly began to understand the value of team dynamics and the importance of balancing his personal ambition with the needs of the team. The defining moment of Michael's college career came in the 1982 NCAA championship game against Georgetown. UNC was up against a tough opponent, and with time running out, the pressure was immense. The game was tied, and Coach Smith called for a play that would give Michael the chance to take the final shot. As the clock ticked down, Michael received the ball. He knew this was his moment. The weight of the game, the season, and the expectations on his shoulders all came down to this single shot. With poise and confidence, Michael took the shot. The ball flew through the air, and as it swished through the net, UNC secured the victory. The crowd erupted, and Michael became a national hero in that moment. That shot, a simple yet powerful moment, was a turning point for Michael. It was more than just a game-winning basket. It was a moment of personal revelation. In that instant, Michael realized that he was capable of greatness. The confidence he gained from making that shot stayed with him throughout his career. It was the first time he truly believed that he had what it took to be the best, not just in college basketball, but in the world. His success at UNC wasn't just about winning. It was about discovering his own potential and understanding the kind of player he could become. But as monumental as that shot was, it was just the beginning. Michael's journey was far from over, and the real test of his greatness would come when he left the college stage behind and entered the brutal world of professional basketball. The stakes would be higher, the competition fiercer, and the pressure greater than anything he had faced before. What he had achieved at UNC was just a glimpse of the extraordinary career that lay ahead. In 1984, Michael Jordan entered the NBA as the third overall pick in the draft, selected by the Chicago Bulls. For Michael, this was the moment he had been working toward his entire life, and it was a chance to prove himself on the world's biggest stage. However, the transition from college to professional basketball was anything but easy. The NBA was a completely different level of competition. The players were bigger, faster, and more experienced. Michael, still fresh out of college, had to quickly adapt to a new style of play, one that was far more physical and strategic than what he was used to at UNC. Despite the challenges, Michael's individual brilliance was immediately apparent. His athleticism, speed, and scoring ability set him apart from other players. In his rookie season, he averaged over 28 points per game, making an instant impact on the Bulls. His dazzling plays, including his acrobatic layups and high-flying dunks, quickly earned him recognition. Yet, despite his personal success, the Chicago Bulls were struggling. The team was far from a championship contender, and Michael often found himself carrying a heavy load on his own. While he was dominating on the court, the team's lack of success led to early criticism. Some pundits wondered whether Michael could ever win an NBA title, especially if he couldn't elevate his team to the same level. The early years of Michael's NBA career were filled with frustration. He was surrounded by talented players, but the Bulls lacked the cohesive teamwork necessary to make a serious playoff push. Despite Michael's best efforts, the team failed to make deep playoff runs, and the weight of the pressure began to mount. His individual success was not enough to silence the critics who questioned whether he could lead a team to a championship. Michael, however, was not one to shy away from criticism. He understood that greatness wasn't just about personal accolades, it was about winning as a team. He worked tirelessly on his game, pushing himself to improve and develop the skills necessary to lead his team to success. As the years went by, the weight of expectations pressed down harder. The basketball world watched eagerly, waiting for Michael to deliver a championship. The pressure to succeed, both individually and as a team, became almost overwhelming. But what Michael didn't know was that his battle with failure was about to shape his legendary rise. The struggles he faced early in his career would fuel his desire to become not just the best player in the NBA, but the greatest to ever play the game. His failures would become his motivation, and every loss would push him to work harder and fight even more relentlessly for success. His journey to greatness wasn't going to be easy, but it was this very struggle that would ultimately define him. The rise of the Chicago Bulls from underdogs to NBA champions is a story built on Michael Jordan's unmatched talent, relentless work ethic, and the leadership of coach Phil Jackson. When Jackson took over as head coach in 1989, the Bulls were still struggling to find their way, despite Jordan's brilliance. Phil Jackson introduced a new approach to the team, focusing on a system of basketball that emphasized unselfish play, teamwork, and a balanced offense. Known as the triangle offense, this strategy gave the Bulls a more structured and effective way to play, making the most of each player's strengths. Jackson's leadership style was different from anything the Bulls had experienced before. He encouraged players to think beyond just individual success and work toward the greater goal of the team. Under his guidance, the Bulls began to flourish. Jordan's transformation under Coach Jackson was nothing short of extraordinary. While Michael was already an exceptional individual player, Jackson helped him understand that true greatness meant not only scoring, but also trusting his teammates and creating a dynamic, team-oriented offense. This was a difficult adjustment for Michael, who had often carried the burden of winning games on his own. But with Jackson's mentorship, Michael began to embrace the importance of involving his teammates and playing a more well-rounded game. His leadership on the court became just as crucial as his scoring ability. And as he grew into his new role, the team grew alongside him. In 1991, the Chicago Bulls reached the NBA Finals for the first time in franchise history. They faced the legendary Los Angeles Lakers, led by Magic Johnson, and many believed the Bulls, despite their newfound strength, were still too young and inexperienced to win. But Michael Jordan was determined to prove the world wrong. In the finals, he dominated, leading the Bulls to a 4-1 victory over the Lakers. Michael averaged 31.2 points per game in the finals, but it wasn't just his scoring that made the difference. It was his all-around game, his defense, his leadership. That victory marked the beginning of a new era for the Chicago Bulls and for Michael Jordan himself. The championship wasn't just a personal achievement for Michael. It was a declaration that he and the Bulls were now a force to be reckoned with in the NBA. As the Bulls continued to win championships, Michael Jordan's influence began to extend beyond the basketball court. In 1985, Nike introduced the Air Jordan sneaker, which quickly became a cultural phenomenon. The iconic Jumpman logo and the stylish design of the shoes made them a must-have for sneakerheads and basketball fans alike. Michael's endorsement deal with Nike turned him into a global icon, and the Air Jordan brand became synonymous with success, style, and excellence. The sneakers weren't just shoes, they were symbols of aspiration and achievement. Michael's influence in the world of fashion and pop culture grew exponentially, and his off-court success was as groundbreaking as his on-court dominance. His fame reached beyond sports, as he became a household name in households that didn't even follow basketball. As Michael's fame grew, so did the pressure on him. He wasn't just the best player in the NBA, he was now a global superstar. The expectations on him were immense, but Michael never let that stop him. His focus and work ethic remained unwavering. His commitment to his craft, practicing longer, pushing himself harder, and continually refining his game, kept him ahead of his competition. He became known for his legendary ability to perform in clutch moments, for his hunger to win, and for his desire to be the best, no matter what it took. This intensity fueled the Chicago Bulls' success and led them to a string of championships throughout the 1,990 seconds. However, as Michael reached the summit of basketball greatness, a personal tragedy would strike, a loss so brutal that it would shake the very core of his identity and the game itself. This tragedy would be the ultimate test of Michael's resilience and would challenge everything he had achieved. In 1993, at the height of his basketball career, Michael Jordan faced a tragedy that would change his life forever. His father, James R. Jordan, Sr., was murdered in a senseless act of violence. On July 23rd, James was traveling through North Carolina when he stopped to rest in his car. While he was asleep, two men approached the car, and in a shocking act, they robbed and killed him. The news hit Michael like a devastating blow. James wasn't just Michael's father. He was his best friend, his mentor, and his biggest supporter. The bond between them was deep, and James had been by Michael's side through every triumph and failure, always encouraging him and believing in his potential. Michael's entire world seemed to crumble when he received the news of his father's death. The loss of James was not just a personal tragedy for Michael. It was a crushing emotional and mental blow that left him feeling lost and uncertain. His father had been the one constant in his life, the one person who had always believed in him, no matter what. In the wake of his father's death, Michael struggled to find meaning and purpose in the game he once loved. The grief was overwhelming, and Michael found it difficult to cope with the void left by his father's absence. He stepped away from the game, leaving the Chicago Bulls and the sport that had made him a global legend. In a move that shocked the world, Michael decided to pursue a career in professional baseball, a sport his father had always dreamed of him playing. James had been an avid baseball fan, and his dream was for Michael to one day play professionally. It was a decision that seemed unthinkable to many, especially after Michael had just reached the pinnacle of his basketball career. But for Michael, it was a way to honor his father's memory and to step away from the pressure and pain of the basketball world. He joined the Birmingham Barons, a minor league baseball team, and began his journey into the unfamiliar world of baseball. The transition was difficult. Michael was no longer the superstar. He was now just another player trying to make it to the top. But for Michael, this was about more than baseball. It was a way to grieve, to heal, and to try to find peace in the midst of his sorrow. Despite his efforts to find solace in baseball, Michael never fully escaped the shadow of his father's death. His grief weighed heavily on him, and though he gave his best effort on the baseball field, it was clear that his heart was still tied to basketball. The decision to leave basketball was not easy for Michael, but it was a choice he felt he had to make. His father's death had shattered him, and in his quest to find healing, he turned to a sport that had always been a connection to his father. But in the wake of his father's death, Michael Jordan stepped away from the game. However, life, as it often does, had more twists in store for the fallen hero. The journey of healing and self-discovery was just beginning, and the road ahead would be filled with challenges, but also moments of redemption. Michael's story was far from over. After stepping away from basketball following his father's death, Michael Jordan joined the Birmingham Barons, a minor league baseball team, in 1994. Baseball, a sport his father had loved, seemed like the perfect way for Michael to honor his memory and escape the pressure of basketball. But despite his fame, Michael was not exempt from the harsh realities of professional sports. As a rookie in baseball, he faced the challenges of learning a completely new game. While he had always excelled in basketball, baseball was different. His skills as a basketball player didn't automatically translate to the diamond, and Michael struggled to adjust. His batting average was low, and while his athleticism was evident, he was far from the star he had been in basketball. But Michael wasn't the type to back down from a challenge. His time with the Barons, although difficult, helped him grow in ways he hadn't anticipated. He worked tirelessly on his game, pushing through the physical and mental barriers that came with the transition. He spent hours in the batting cage, honing his skills and trying to prove to himself, as much as to others, that he could succeed in baseball. Yet, while baseball gave him a brief respite from the grief and expectations of basketball, it also revealed the emptiness he felt without the game that had defined his life. The pressure to perform in baseball was nothing compared to the pain of losing his father, but it was still overwhelming in its own right. Michael struggled with doubt, questioning if he had made the right choice by leaving basketball behind. His love for the game of basketball never truly faded. Even as he spent time in the minor leagues, his mind often drifted back to the sport he had mastered. Gradually, Michael's competitive fire, which had been stoked by his desire to succeed in basketball, began to burn again. He started to feel the urge to return to the court, where he had always felt most at home, as much as baseball. He had given him the space to grieve and heal. It was never the same as the passion he had for basketball. It wasn't long before Michael realized that his heart was still with the game that had made him a legend. He had taken a break, but the call of basketball was far too strong to ignore. His time with the Barons helped him rediscover his drive and reminded him of the competitive spirit that had defined his career. The fire was returning, and Michael knew that it was time for him to come back to the sport he loved. But no matter how much baseball taught him, the call of basketball would be louder. The game he truly loved was calling him back, and the world would soon witness the greatest comeback of all. Michael Jordan's journey was about to take a new turn, one that would change the course of sports history forever. In March 1995, the world received a shocking announcement that would change the course of basketball history. Michael Jordan was returning to the NBA. After a 17-month hiatus following the death of his father and a brief stint in professional baseball, Jordan was coming back to the sport that had made him a global icon. The basketball world erupted with excitement, but there was an underlying question that everyone was asking. Would the Michael Jordan, who had dominated the NBA and led the Chicago Bulls to 3 consecutive championships, be the same player after such a long absence? Would he still be able to perform at the level that had made him the greatest player of his generation? Michael's return wasn't as easy as everyone had hoped. Despite his unparalleled skill and experience, he faced several struggles and setbacks in the early days of his comeback. Physically, he was not in the same shape he had been before his retirement. His body, though still incredibly fit, had lost some of the sharpness and endurance that had once made him a force to be reckoned with on the court. He was slower, and his timing was off. His first few games back, with the Bulls, were a reminder that even the greatest players have to fight through the rust that comes with time away from the game. His shooting percentage was lower than usual, and he wasn't the same high flyer he once was, leaving many to wonder if he could ever return to his former greatness. However, what set Michael apart from other players wasn't just his skill, it was his unshakable determination. He had always been known for his work ethic, and now, more than ever, that work ethic would be tested. Michael wasn't willing to accept being just good enough. He pushed himself through the physical and mental barriers of his return. He spent countless hours in the gym, practicing his shot, working on his footwork, and rebuilding his strength and stamina. His leadership also began to shine again as he took charge of the Bulls, demanding the same level of excellence from his teammates that he expected from himself. Slowly but surely, Michael's confidence began to rebuild, and as the games went on, he found his rhythm once again. The player who had been known for his ferocity, his ability to perform under pressure, and his hunger to win was gradually returning to form. Despite these challenges, Michael's return to the NBA wasn't just about basketball. It was more than just regaining his skill and returning to the top of his game. His comeback was about something much deeper, something personal. It was about proving to himself that he could overcome the grief of losing his father, the doubts that had plagued him during his time away, and the pressure of living up to his own legacy. Michael's return was not just a physical comeback. It was a personal journey of healing, redemption, and the desire to finish what he had started. And what he would face next, both on and off the court, would solidify his legacy forever. The journey wasn't over yet, and the world would soon see the full extent of his greatness. In the 1997 NBA Finals, the EPC, Chicago Bulls faced the Utah Jazz in what would become one of the most legendary matchups in basketball history. The series was intense, with both teams giving it everything they had, but it was Game 5 that would go down in history as the flu game, a performance that cemented Michael Jordan's status as the greatest basketball player of all time. On the day of the game, Michael was not just battling the Jazz, he was battling his own body. He had come down with a severe illness, his body racked with fever, chills, and exhaustion. At one point, his temperature reached 103 degrees. He was physically broken, barely able to stand, but there he was, on the court, determined to play. Despite being dangerously sick, Michael Jordan refused to sit out the game. He was the heart and soul of the Bulls, and they needed him if they were to have a chance at taking the lead in the series. The odds were stacked against him. He was dehydrated, weak, and unable to keep food down. But when the game began, it was clear that Michael's heart was as strong as ever. He put on a performance that defied all expectations. Every time the Jazz threatened to take control, it was Michael who stepped up. He scored 38 points, including crucial baskets in the final moments, leading the Bulls to a 90-88 victory. His shots were smooth, his moves sharp, and his will to win unmistakable. Watching him fight through the pain, you could see that this wasn't just about basketball. This was about something much bigger. Michael's ability to rise above the physical agony and still dominate the game was a testament to his mental toughness, his unrelenting desire to win, and his belief in himself and his team. That performance in Game 5 wasn't just a game-winning effort. It was the defining moment of the 1997 Finals. Michael's incredible performance in the flu game showcased his resilience and determination in ways that no one had ever seen before. The Bulls went on to win the 1997 championship, securing their fifth title with Michael as the undisputed leader of the team. His 38-point performance while battling illness became a symbol of what he stood for: greatness, determination, and the refusal to quit, no matter the odds. This game, along with the entire 1997 championship run, solidified Michael Jordan's legacy as the greatest player to ever play the game. The way he fought through the pain, with no regard for his physical state, left a lasting impact on fans, players, and basketball history. It wasn't just about the titles. It was about the heart that Michael Jordan brought to the court every time he played. But as the years went by, and Michael reached the pinnacle of his career, the challenges continued to mount. What followed was even more impossible than the games he had just won. The greatest challenge of Michael's career was still to come, one that would test him in ways no championship series ever could. In 1998, Michael Jordan's career with the Chicago Bulls reached its final chapter. The 1,998 NBA Finals against the Utah Jazz marked the end of a dynasty that had dominated the NBA for much of the 1,990 seconds. It was the Bulls' chance to secure a sixth championship. But for Michael, it was much more than that. It was the end of an era, the conclusion of a story that had shaped the entire landscape of basketball. The pressure was immense. Michael was 35 years old, and although still playing at an elite level, he was beginning to feel the weight of his years. The constant scrutiny, the expectations, the challenges, it was all coming to a head. Yet, despite the doubts surrounding his age and physical condition, Michael was determined to go out on top. In Game 6 of the Finals, the Bulls were up against the Jazz, and the game was tight. With only seconds left on the clock and the Bulls trailing by 1 point, Michael Jordan had the ball in his hands. This was his moment, the moment where a career filled with impossible shots, stunning plays, and clutch performances was about to end. As he dribbled to the top of the key, the entire basketball world seemed to hold its breath. With a calmness that only the greatest players in history could possess, Michael Jordan rose up, dribbling past defender Byron Russell, and launching a shot with just 5.2 seconds remaining. The ball sailed through the air in slow motion, a perfect arc, before swishing through the net. It was the game-winning shot, securing the Bulls' sixth and final championship of the 1,990 seconds. As the buzzer sounded, the crowd erupted in celebration. But for Michael, this shot wasn't just another title. It was the culmination of his entire career, a legacy sealed in history. The emotional weight of that final shot was heavy. It was the end of the Chicago Bulls dynasty, and Michael Jordan knew that it would also mark the end of his career with the team that had defined his life. As he stood there, looking around the court, the significance of the rise, the moment settled in. The final shot was the last of many, a perfect exclamation point on a career that had shaped the NBA, transformed basketball into a global phenomenon, and established Michael Jordan as the greatest player to ever play the game. But the true weight of the moment wasn't just in the shot, it was in the realization that this was the end of his time with the Bulls and, possibly, the end of his career. As he walked off the court for the last time as a Bull, Michael Jordan was not just walking away from a game. He was leaving behind a legacy that no one could ever replicate. The game had given him everything: fame, success, admiration, but it had also taken so much. The personal sacrifices, the pressure, the constant battle to maintain greatness, it was all coming to a close. But even in his final season, Michael Jordan couldn't escape the truth. The game had changed, and so had he. The world of basketball was different now. The Bulls were no longer the dominant force they once were, and Michael, too, had changed. Despite his legendary status, he was still human, and as the game evolved, so did his role in it. The road ahead would require something entirely different from him. But for now, he had reached the summit once again, securing his place in history. After retiring from basketball for the second time in 1999, Michael Jordan didn't fade into obscurity like many athletes do after leaving their sport. Instead, he reinvented himself as a mogul, investor, and philanthropist. He was no longer just the greatest player on the court. He was now a powerful figure off the court, reshaping his identity into something far greater. One of Michael's most significant business ventures was his partnership with Nike, which led to the creation of the iconic Jordan brand. The Air Jordan line of shoes had already been a huge success during his playing career, but after retiring, the brand continued to grow, turning Michael into one of the most recognized figures in global fashion and sportswear. The Jordan brand has since become a multi-billion-dollar business, and it remains a dominant force in the sneaker world, with new releases and collaborations continuing to make waves in the industry. Michael's partnership with Nike not only helped him build an empire, but it also cemented his place as a cultural icon, bridging the gap between sports and lifestyle. In addition to his success with the Jordan brand, Michael made savvy business moves by investing in various industries, including real estate and NASCAR. Perhaps one of his most notable investments was in the Charlotte Hornets, an NBA team that he purchased in 2010. Becoming the principal owner of the Hornets allowed Michael to stay connected to the game he loved, but this time he was on the other side of the court. As an owner, he faced different challenges than he did as a player, but his competitive spirit remained undiminished. The success of his business ventures, including his stakes in NASCAR and other enterprises, proved that Michael's skills extended far beyond basketball. He became a true mogul, diversifying his portfolio and continuing to build on his already impressive wealth. While Michael's business ventures and investments thrived, he also became known for his philanthropic efforts. Although he was often a private individual, Michael quietly supported various causes, including education, health, and youth programs. His donations to organizations like the Boys and Girls Clubs of America and his contributions to the Make-A-Wish Foundation demonstrated his desire to give back to the community. Michael also pledged millions of dollars to help fight social injustice and support underserved communities, showing that his heart was just as committed to making a difference off the court as it had been to winning championships. His philanthropic efforts were not flashy or publicized, but they were significant, and they reflected a side of Michael that many didn't see, the side of him that cared deeply about using his platform for good. Michael's personal life, too, evolved after basketball. He married his longtime partner, Yvette Prieto, in 2013, and they had twin daughters, Victoria and Isabel, in 2014. Michael's family life became a source of joy and peace for him in the years following his basketball career. His children brought a new sense of purpose and love into his life, and he made a conscious effort to be more present with them, cherishing the moments he had missed while pursuing his career. Michael had spent so much of his life focused on basketball that it took time for him to adjust to a life that didn't revolve around the game. But with his family by his side, Michael found a new sense of balance and happiness. Despite all his success and the new life he had built, Michael Jordan could never fully escape the shadow of grief and loss. The death of his father, James Jordan Sr., had left a permanent mark on his soul, and even though he had achieved everything he had ever dreamed of, the pain of that loss remained. His legacy as a basketball legend was secure, but the quiet battles he faced within himself, dealing with the scars of the past and the pressures of being an icon, were ongoing. Michael's final battle was not on the court, but in the quiet of his heart, where he had to learn to live with the grief that had shaped so much of his journey. Michael Jordan isn't just a name, it's a story of resilience, heartbreak, redemption, and greatness. His journey from being cut from his high school basketball team to becoming the greatest player to ever grace the NBA is a testament to what can be achieved through sheer determination and an unwavering belief in oneself. Michael's career wasn't without struggles, but each obstacle only fueled his desire to be the best. He faced personal loss, setbacks on the court, and the constant pressure to perform at the highest NO level. Yet, with every challenge, he rose higher, proving time and time again that greatness is not defined by the absence of failure, but by the ability to overcome it. Michael's legacy extends far beyond the basketball court. His impact on sports and culture is immeasurable. He transformed the NBA into a global powerhouse, influencing not just basketball players but athletes across all sports. His Air Jordan brand revolutionized the sneaker industry, turning shoes into symbols of status and aspiration. His style, work ethic, and competitive spirit became the blueprint for greatness, and his story continues to inspire millions around the world. But Michael Jordan's legacy is also a lesson in humanity. It's about the power of resilience, the importance of pushing through adversity, and the belief that no matter how many times you fall, you can always rise again. His story reminds us that success is not just about trophies or records, but about the strength to keep going when life seems impossible. Michael Jordan's legacy is written not just in the history of basketball, but in the hearts of those who dare to rise after falling.